Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, welcome. It's welcome to Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. We're going live from Wimbledon Spiritualist Church tonight. We've just done a demonstration of mediumship with myself and Ivan Lee, Vice President at the church. And now I'm just going to do a couple of little questions with my dad, actually, as part of a sort of new series of questions and answers with some of the ambassadors, the people I hold quite high at our church. So good evening to you all. Dad.
Hi. Hello, son. How are you?
I'm really good. So we're doing this stuff from TikTok. You've obviously had lots of ideas about starting to interview more people from the church and stuff. So imagining then that obviously I don't know about your sort of spiritual legacy or about you. Just start off by telling me a little bit about you. Who are you in the concept of spiritualism?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ray Robinson. I'm the joint president of Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. I entered this church roughly when I was 11 years old, roughly around 1971, and I first sat in circle around about that age, which I always had a codicil to that. I wouldn't always say that children should do that now.
Yeah.
I am a practicing medium, spiritual healer, and more importantly for me, minister of the spiritualist religion. And I got involved in spiritualism roughly November 1965, 25th of November. My granddad passed to spirit that day, and the following day I was talking to him on the edge of my bed, and to me, I always believed in heaven, but to me they showed that he was alive and well in heaven as he was telling me, and I would rush down to tell mum and my nan, just spoken to my granddad, and they thought I was having some sort of hysteria. But when I was 11, I started having dreams and visions, and my dad introduced me to a guy called Bill Murray, who was probably one of the finest healers and mediums I'd ever met, and the rest is my history, as it were.
Yeah, and we're celebrating 100 years of spiritualism in this building at Wimbledon, just a little bit over in terms of the original Mr. Richard Bush sort of mission. And so half of the sort of church's history you've been involved with as a member of the congregation, and then obviously when you started to give service, and then so granddad, your dad, he was president for around 25 years.
Yeah.
So a quarter of the sort of church's history there, and you became president in this church. We think it was about 18 years ago.
Yes, roughly.
Working out.
Give or take.
Approaching that legacy as well. And I'm definitely not ready for you to hand it over to me until you've done at least 35 years, which is absolutely fine. So been involved in spiritualism a little while, and for lots of people just finding it now. What's the one thing you know now, 50 years into spiritualism, that you wish you knew when you first got involved?
That there are spiritualist churches. I really didn't know there was a spiritualist church till I was well into my 11 and a half years, 12 years old, probably 11. And there was one at the almost bottom of the road. I lived in Brixton. And then I started telling people there were spiritualist churches, and I found out there were other spiritualist churches. But I literally have been coming here since I was 11. And I don't think spiritualism in them days advertised itself as well as it does now.
Yeah.
And I think that's disappointing then, but as you know, Ashley, how difficult it is to try and advertise a spiritualist meeting and getting new people involved into spiritualism, especially the younger generation. When I was first here, I was the youngest person as a member of this church for about 25 years. Young people don't seem to want to come in about life after death. There was a few got involved a little bit when COVID happened, but they never sort of stayed the track, as it were, stayed the journey.
Yeah, but let's sort of go into that point, because spiritualism as a religion, relatively modern, about 176 years old. We've got the famous sort of tappings and knockings of the Fox sisters in New York State, and they realised that that was an intelligence energy, and eventually that sort of grew up into sort of mediumship. So I'm a spiritual person. I'm therefore a proud spiritualist and minister and sort of medium. But spiritualism had different sort of peaks and troughs, and actually as a result of major conflicts like World War I and then World War II, people that were losing loved ones and wanted proof of life after death, sometimes spiritualism was that lighthouse for them. But mediumship is just one of the ways of practicing our religion. and we said that, you know, there are lots of people that consider themselves spiritual without being a spiritualist. But why would a young person that maybe doesn't know many people that live in that place I call heaven, why would they be involved in living a spiritual life or being a spiritualist? What's in it for them? What's the offer?
I think the world we're living in today is not in a great place. And I've always believed in spiritualisation of the soul. And I think the younger generation are sometimes looking for something more than religion.
Absolutely.
But they don't want to go to church, necessarily a happy clappy church, or they don't want to go to church and sing, politely I say this, boring hymns. So they want to come to church where there's an energy, an hour of power, I like to call it.
An hour of power, yeah.
Where we like to manifest the mediumship and the gifts of the Spirit. And mediums also have to be good to entertain the younger generation, because it's the world needs spiritualism, in my opinion. And people like Conan Doyle made that very self-evident after World War One, and people like Lord Dowding, who was the commander of the Battle of Britain, did the same in World War Two, but he got shunned for that. He would write to people when he heard about friends being passed the Spirit, and he would write to people and they would say, you shouldn't do that. And he said, well, we should proclaim that there is no death.
Yeah. But leading that spiritual pathway, living that spiritual life, mediumship's one of the tools of practicing the religion, but getting involved in their local spiritualist church or their spiritual centre, it's an opportunity for them to get on that pathway of progression. Now, as spiritualists, we talk about values, we talk about ethics, we talk about founding sort of principles and sort of codes of ethics. So there are big spiritual organisations. This church is obviously governed by the United Spiritualists. But what for you and this church are the principles? You know, what we talk about spiritualism being more than a religion, more than just a faith and belief system, a way of life. What are the principles in plain English for you at this church?
Well, I like to quote Jesus on this, because when Jesus was asked what is the greatest commandment out of the 10 commandments, he said the 2 commandments he favoured was to love the Lord thy God with thy heart, thy mind and thy soul, and to love thy neighbour as you would be loved yourself. On these 2 commandments hangeth the whole law. And I think the world could do with loving their neighbour and believing more in the power of something greater than us.
Yeah.
Be it God, Divine Spirit, Mother, Father, God, whatever your terminology, and also not to be judgmental on people the way they live their life.
Yeah.
We've always tried to look at spiritualism. It's just not a church-based religion. As you know, in the younger days, my dad went out around the country taking spiritualism to halls and meetings, and we've tried to do the similar thing here within the church to try and have events we bring people into. But what's sadly lacking is bringing the younger people in. And we need to try and do that more. The whole of spiritualism needs that. We can't rest on our laurels, because when we come to pastor the grand church above, there'll be nobody in our churches to run our churches.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, for those of you watching on YouTube and our socials and sort of TikTok, when we talk about young people, I think it's fair I add a sort of bit of context. So the average age, like the mean average age of congregation at our church is actually about 65 years old. And females in particular, so ladies 65 years and older, that tends to make up the average member of the congregation. Now we've got, you know, my kids that are like ages 3, 7 and 10 that sort of make up those numbers. But in general terms, those are the types of people coming to the church at the moment. Spiritualism has people from all different sort of varieties of walks of life. But when we're talking about engaging with people, of course, if you weren't brought up in the spiritual family or living that sort of spiritualist life, it tends to be later on in life that people sort of find the church.
Something happens in life.
Some sort of trauma or sort of loss of physical life.
I remember on occasion, my father had done a meeting in Cheltenham, and these 3 young people, they were younger than me, walked in very casually, and cut a very long story short, they got a message from a medium that night. I'm not sure which one, but there was 2. And basically, their friend had just passed away in the local hospital, and previous night they'd actually said, if there's any way back, we all find our way. And they walked into the spiritualist meeting, and they found that their friend had not died. in the sense of the word, because dead really means finished, gone, no more. He'd passed over from this life to a more abundant life.
Yeah.
And it's then keeping those young people invested into the church. And it's sitting either in classes or meditation. One of the things I'm thinking about on a Sunday is having a regular meditation before the actual divine service.
Yeah.
So people can start relaxing and attuning, and actually have a night where you can ask any question, like you did the other night at Hatbridge Church. Offer yourself and say, any question, you've got anything you can ask me. It might sound silly or it may not. And we need to encourage the younger people to do that. Absolutely. And not worried how they dress or what they wear, if they've got earrings, if they've got this, that or the other. Because my dad did, as you know.
Everyone welcome. Really,
yeah, everybody welcome.
It's a very...
Any race, colour or creed.
Very inclusive faith and belief system. And of course you can come, there's no maximum age either, you can come in at any age.
I think it's best that people shouldn't receive messages or readings under the age of 18.
Yeah.
I do say to mediums, there's somebody in church tonight, they're under 18, because I've normally asked if they are, please be careful what you say. Through experience that I've seen when in my younger days. And there used to be a young girl that used to attend Hatbridge, and I asked her mum, did she mind us coming? And we always kept an eye on what was being said, because the younger generation is also, they can see things in words that perhaps we can't see themselves.
Yeah, that element of personal responsibility.
Yeah, well, very much so.
Thank you, Dad, for talking to us tonight. And thank you for those of you that have been watching either live on one of our sort of social media platforms or not. We're going to hopefully do these little segments, 10, 15 minutes at a time. But I'm looking forward to sitting for an hour in the power. Hit us up, comment on this stream, comment on these things. Tell us about the types of things that you would like us to see, both in person here at Wimbledon Spiritualist Church or our sister church, Hatbridge, or indeed online. Dad, anything else you want to ask or add for the people watching?
Please just come and visit the Wimbledon Spiritualist Church or the Hatbridge Spiritualist Church and come and find out for yourself. Thank you.
All right. Good night and God bless. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.